Hey guys, this is a little bit different of a video, but I've been recently really messing around with Moxfield, so I wanted to show you how I have my setup, because I think it's pretty cool. If you might see, I've got my OBS open, and we're going to do like a step-by-step on how I actually got this, because it is pretty neat. I can do extra special things, like I even have the ability to Sylvan library. I have the ability to draw my card for turn and show it on screen, and a few other cool things that, along with just showing just the library, a cool image on the background, and my hand, graveyard, exile, all that stuff. So I thought it'd be really useful. So I guess I should start with what is Moxfield, or more officially, the Moxfield playtest feature. So Moxfield is a great deck building website that has this cool ability called playtest. I'll show it to you a little bit later, but it allows you to take any list, hit the playtest button, and you'll get a field that will basically let you goldfish. But how is that helpful? Well, using OBS, the program that I've listed up above, you have the ability called this virtual camera right down here. And that lets you essentially have a screen as a virtual webcam that you can use in applications like Spelltable, Discord, anything like that, and essentially have your field. Well, unfortunately, the actual playtest layer, let me open that up. So this is what the actual playtest looks like. Sorry about all the tabs up top. If you just have this screen, well, everyone can see your hand. They can see that. It's not very useful. So you have to do a few little things to allow you to actually play. And that's what this setup is going to be. So swapping back over to Discord, this is how I have my setup. So I have my playtest area, I have my hand, library, graveyard, and exile, and my actual playfield. I have the webcam as well, but that's not needed. And then I've got some extra fancy things as well. As I said, I've got the ability to Sylvan. That's pretty advanced. I have the ability to draw for turn. And then I also have the ability to roll a dice for like a mana crypt or something like that. So how do I get to all these things? Well, I'll go over those more advanced stuff a little later. But to start, you need OBS. So if you haven't had it downloaded, pause the video, download it. It's a free software. It's pretty easy to do. Once you do, you'll be greeted with a screen similar to this, except it's not going to have all these scenes or sources. So I guess let's start by making a new making a new scene. So you go down to the bottom right, and you can call it whatever. So I just call this as Moxfield Test, but you can name it whatever. So in Moxfield Test, you'll notice that there's nothing there. All right, so let's start off with the first source that you'll need, and it is a window capture. So you can either add existing, or you can make a new one. If this is your first go, you'll be able to create a new one. So I'm just going to call this Battlefield Test. I'm just going to call all these things test so I don't get them confused. Make sure the source is visible and hit OK. So next you're going to have another window, and it's going to ask you what window you want to do, the capture method, window match priority, and capture cursor, and some other stuff. At the start, you are going to have to pick your window. So I have, currently for that, I've got a Marnius that I just showed you. Like that. Capture method, automatic is fine. Match title, otherwise find window of the same type. This one you can do, I generally just say match title, otherwise find window of the same executable. And then I unclick capture cursor, but you can do either one. And then you hit OK. So you have a window, and clearly this is not usable whatsoever. So you have the ability to resize. You can just drag, and it will. So a little bit more. And you've got a window. But this also just shows you it just shows you everything, so you don't really need that. Now, if you hold the Alt key and drag, it'll actually let you resize the window. And instead of just actually resizing it, it lets you show what the window actually will be. So this way you can cut out your hand, you can cut out the top. I normally cut out just short of the battlefield. I trim a little bit in, and then I also trim this right side off. So you're not going to use the full screen. Then you can then drag this, and now holding shift, it'll let you warp. So instead of having the alt key, which will zoom in and zoom out, if you hold shift, this will let you stretch the image. So that way everything fits in nicely. Also, one thing I forgot to mention, going back to this, in this top right hand corner, this is how big the images are. I generally like a 150% increase because I think that gives you a lot of usable space while still having the cards readable. So this is your playfield. So just stopping at this is the very baseline. It's not that bad. So this shows you that, and when you can see me hovering over cards. So when you move things around, it'll just keep. All right, so now you have the basics. Now let's get a little more of the useful information. So the number of cards in your hand, and the number of cards in your library, your graveyard, and whatnot. Because if you realize you're just going to be dragging cards on screen, off screen, and people aren't really going to know what's in there unless you tell them. So you can do one of two things. For one, you can just not use the graveyard feature and just have them along your right hand side, but you can then do something a little bit different. So if you do another source, you go Windows capture, and let's say this is library test. So you click the same one, capture message, capture cursor, and then title and executable. So this way you can have multiples on the same thing. So here, this is called library. So I'm just going to resize this so that way it just shows the library, and then you can resize this how large or small you want. You can mess around where you want. I'm just going to put this in the bottom right hand corner. I'm going to make this a little bit smaller. So I'm going to repeat that for the hand. There we go. Hand. And then you can resize. And if you really want, you can really work on this to make them the same size, same whatever. But for now, this is just going to be a rough test. And I'm going to do the same thing with graveyard and the exile pile, but I'm just going to use existing sources. That way it just makes it easier. So add existing, and I can show graveyard. They're all going to be the same thing, basically. So, and to save on room, I generally do about half because most people are telling by the art anyways. So that way, as long as they can see the top half of the art, it's fine. And let me do one more. And if you wanted, you could also have extra things like showing your commander and whatnot. Let's get these. But there you go. You've got a very basic thing, and that will let you swap back over. So put the Enlightened Tutor in the graveyard and put the land in exile. We go back to OBS, and ta-da, they're there. And you'll be able to see it move in real time. Luckily for you, as long as you're just using this as a virtual web camera, you can have it set up and then minimize this. You don't need to look here on the screen. You'll just have to know what your barriers are. Because as I said, you didn't use this right hand of the screen. So that is something that you'll need to be aware of if your cards just start clipping off the side. But that's pretty easy to deal with. Okay, there's also one other thing that I should probably mention. So this works really well when you have one thing. But if you ever want to swap decks, or if you've opened up like a new Chrome window or something like that, and the images aren't loading, it's a pretty simple fix. So here, let me show you. So currently, I'm on my Marnius list. Let me open up a new window, and let's go Moxfield. All right, so we'll go to a different list. Let's maximize this, and let's play test this. So I've got my 150%, and going back to OBS, it shows still Marnius. That's not what I want to show. So instead, I just go, so under your sources, you go, it will have to go to each individual one, but just go down to window and get your new list that you're wanting to do it, and just swap everything over. That over. So once everything is swapped over, it'll work. So let me just double check. So ley line there, graveyard. There we go. So now you can see that it's been updated. So that works out pretty good. And it's not that hard. It is annoying every time you have to switch, but if you're just switching on the same Chrome tab, it should do it pretty automatically. So if we open up a new Moxfield list, so we'll do this one. We will play test just to double check. And bam, it's been updated to the new list. It's just when you make a new actual window that this error can happen, but it's pretty minor and really easy to deal with. So next up is the ability to put an image. So what we're going to do is we are going to put an image tab, whatever I call them background. Image file. So you can pick anything you want. Let's go with that. Sounds fine with me. These don't really care. And then just drag that so that we're like, oh, well, I can't see anything. Well, so if you go down to the sources, essentially this is like the stack almost, where the first card up is the first card seen. If you just drag this below, it works. So you're going to want to drag it all the way to the bottom. So you're like, now I can't see anything. Well, this is where a fancy little thing called a filter is. So if you hit the filter, you add it, and instead of adding a chroma key, add a color key. That's one of the things a lot of people say use the chroma key, but if you do, for some reason, the chroma key does not like any white cards. It'll really mess with them. So instead, add a color key. Doesn't matter what you name it. And then if you go into custom color, you can actually select color. Pick a color on screen. Hit that, and it's all 2s. Hit OK. So perfect. We can now see our background image. Now, here is where you can mess with things. So you can see that the black is a little clipping. So depending on what you do for similarity, you can really affect it. So that looks just about perfect. And I've got it set to 28, although I can go, I think 40, somewhere in that like 45-ish range looks really nice, where you can clearly see the card. You can mess with smoothness again. It's all just what you want to do. Everything else you can generally leave about the same. And then you can just hit close. And now, ta-da, you've got your custom color. Or sorry, you got your custom background. And if you ever want to change out what your background is, you can just change the file here to be whatever. So that's the basics. So that'll get you most of where you want to go. There are a few added features that I have added that just make my life really nice. And those features are the dice feature. That way, Mana Crypt is a very prevalent thing. And the draw a card feature. That's just for me to show other players that, yes, I have drawn my card. I know there's a little symbol on the right that says you have as well. But because I'm doing videos and stuff like that, it's easier for me to do that. So how do I have that set up? So I guess for one, we will start with the dice roller. So if we go back to my original one, Yeah, you can see my beautiful face. I've got this thing called 1d6. And this is, sorry for that. This isn't a webcam, or sorry, this is a different type of source. So go back to our test. We're going to add another source. And instead of being a window capture, it's going to be a browser capture. So I can add existing or create a new one. So I'm just going to call this 1d6 test. Although you can name it whatever dice you want. It's fully customizable. So for this, you're going to need a special URL. So let me grab that special URL. All right. So for this dice roller, I just found one online, and it's by Andy Lawton, and it's called Bees Dice Roller. It's a fully customizable 3D dice roller. So what you're going to do is, so I'll have this website as well linked in the comments, but it explains all the different functionalities and whatnot. What you do is, under the example link, just copy this over. So you're going to copy and paste this link in, and you are going to scroll down. So you're going to scroll down to refresh browser when scene becomes active. So it is, and then hit OK. So essentially, every time you hide it and unhide it, it'll refresh the browser and give you a brand new roll. So it's one of those things that you still have a little bit of work to do, but it's close. I just copied over the example link to do that. But if we go to back to my original one, we go to properties of the D6. This is the dice roller that I use. So I'll also have this one linked down below. But essentially, excuse me, it changes the color of the dice to red, the ink to black. It makes it a D6, and it removes some shadows and other things. So I'll just copy that over. Go back to the test fields. Go to properties and change that over. So now it rolls that red dice. It doesn't say the actual number as a result because I didn't need that. Now we need to do one last thing. So we're going to click on it. We're going to go filters, effect filters, color key, fine, custom color, select color, pick color. Click that again. Okay, close. And now you have removed the background color. So that way you just have the dice itself. And you, as I said, the website has a bunch of different things, but all the colors are based off hex code, so you can just Google those. And every time you hide it, it'll disappear. And whenever you don't hide it, it'll refresh the page and roll your dice. So how does this all become useful? I'm going to save the Sylvan and the draw for last because that's the most in-depth. Essentially, what you're going to use is, if you have a Stream Deck or their optional free Stream Deck on an iPhone or an iPad, you can hit a function key that lets you do this, or you can simply use hotkeys. So for this, at the start, I just used hotkeys. And what you do is you're going to go settings and go down to hotkeys. And there's a bunch of hotkeys. So go down. These are all your different sources. So under Moxfield test, there are a bunch of different things. And you see show, 1d6 test, and hide. So for that, I just used Q and W because it doesn't come up a lot. But show, hide. Hit OK. And now for hiding it, I just hit W on my keyboard. It hid it. And then when I want to show it or roll it, I hit Q. And it'll refresh it, and it'll roll it again. So just with this, you actually have a pretty good usable play space. You've got your deck. You've got everything basically that you need. Now to be a little fancy, because I can be kind of extra. And that'll be draw a card. So for all of this, it actually is really nice to have the Stream Deck, but again, it's still not needed. What you're going to do is you're going to need a few more things. So for one, you're going to need another image. And I already have it, but it's called Magic Back. And all it is the back of a Magic card. You can size that down, and I just make sure that it is smaller than wherever I have my graveyard and whatnot. For this, I want to have this card start here, move here, and descend there. Pretty simple. It just shows the start of a card draw. If you don't know, going back to Moxfield, in the right-hand corner, there are some really useful things. Restart, shuffle, view library, draw, and next turn. If you hit any of the buttons that are underlined, it'll do that action. So if I hit D, it'll draw me a card. If I hit N, it'll go to my next turn, it'll untap and draw me a card. So those are going to be the two important things. So going back to this, essentially, I want to have this card draw me a card whenever I draw a card on Moxfield. So to do that, you're going to do a few things. For one, you are going to need an additional plugin for OBS, but it's really simple to add. So for this, you're going to need a plugin, and it's called the Move plugin. It's actually pretty simple, and I'll have a link down below. Essentially, you're going to hit download. You're going to download whatever you needed. I have Windows, so I just download the Windows installer zip. And then once you do that, just make sure to reset your OBS, and then you can do some really cool things. So you're going to go to your scene. You're going to hit right-click, filters, and add a filter. And under this, you're going to see a few different things: move action, move source, and move value. You're going to want a move source. We'll just call this one draw 1. So it's pretty simple. So at first, you're going to want to pick your source. Luckily, we've got this thing called Magic Back. So we're going to go down, select Magic Back. Then you're going to hit Get Transform. And that's essentially going to say, for this effect, this is the spot that I want it to go to. Then you're going to add another move source. And I'm just going to call this Draw 2, just because this is the order of them. You're going to select your Magic Back, and then you're going to drag the card where you want it to go. Once you finish dragging it, just hit Get Transform. And now you have a draw. So I actually have it as a 5-step, although it could be a 4-step, where it will go from right to left and then down for my hand. So to do that, we're going to need one more source. And then I'm going to call it Draw 3. And this is just, that way I know the order of them. Make sure Magic Back is selected. And then just drag that off screen. Hit Get Transform. And now we can go from 1 to 2 to 3. Pretty simple. But you don't want to have to hit 3 different buttons to draw a card. So in this, you can scroll all the way down to the bottom for Draw 1, and you hit Next Move. Next Move is going to be Draw 2. Then in Draw 2, you scroll all the way back down. Next Move is going to be Draw 3. Seems pretty simple. So when you show that, it's going to draw. Now, there is going to be where it skips back down. So to solve that, you're going to add another draw. I'm just going to duplicate this and just call this Draw 4. For this position, you're going to hit Get Transform. Go back up to Draw 1, and you just need this X position. Draw 4. And then under this, good. So now, go back to Draw 3. and have its next move G, draw 4. So now it's going to draw you a card every time, and it looks natural. Now, if you think that it's going too fast or too slow, you can just go down to this custom duration and make it longer. So instead of 500, let's go 600. That way, it's going to draw you a card slower. See if I can move this a little that way. Maybe it's still not fast enough, so we're going to go 800. Seems good to me. So now we're good with that. We are going to go back to your hotkeys. Oh, and one other thing. To make this card draw feel like it's coming out of the thing, make sure you bring the magic back all the way back and just put it above background of the battlefield. So now we can go back to settings. We can go back to hotkeys. And then under our Moxfield test, you see all these different ones. Draw 1, 2, 3. So we just need to draw 1. So we're going to do, let's just do A. Hit apply. And every time you hit the A key, it's going to draw you a card. So what you actually, that was a mistake. So what you actually want to do, instead of assigning it to A, assign it to the thing D. Go back to hotkeys. Sorry. You want to send this to D. Oh, not Shift D, just D. Additionally, you want to add one and hit the N key. So what that's going to do is whenever you're on Moxfield, if you hit the D to draw it, it's also going to trigger your hotkey. Let's see if I can do this correctly. So whenever I hit the key D, it's drawn me the card. Whenever I've hit N, it draws me the card as well. And you can see that it's doing that as well. So, and as I said, you can all have those set up as extra function keys on like a Stream Deck or using their software as well. But this is just for that. And lastly, the most advanced technique, doing the Sylvan trigger. Show it. It's my Sylvan. So this is just me being extra, but it's going to be the same principles as what I just showed. And it's going to be a lot of extra filter moves. So if I show you, if I go to filters, yes, a lot. These are all my Sylvans. So what I've done is I have 3 magic backs for 3 separate images. And I have it set where when I hit my Sylvan function key, it does 3 actions where it'll pull these 3 cards, which are hiding right here, to the main screen. Then I have 3 other function keys, which I can actually show you here. So here is my Stream Deck. I just gotten it, so this is why it's pretty blank. But I've got my Sylvan key, keep all, keep 2, and keep 1. And what that does is, let's reset that. So in this, I'm not going to go too details into this. Or if you want, I can do just a video on this. But essentially what it does is it filters the toggle on for the first draw for each of these cards. So I hit Sylvan and it says, all right, show Sylvan start 2, which gets it into this position. Then system hotkey D, which will draw me a card on Moxfield. Then it takes the second one, get it into position, draw another card, and then it does it for the third one. So overall, pretty simple, and basically just the same thing that we did. The only difference is these don't have a next key, so they'll just stay here. So you've drawn your 3 cards. Now, how do you do that? Well, I have the keep all, keep 2, and keep 1. And essentially what it does is keep all just toggles these to the down position. When I hit keep all, it zooms these all down, just like if you're drawing a card and then zooms them back up to the right. The only difference is between the draw and the keep all, you don't have a next on that. So I can show you that. So filters. So Sylvan start 1. It's the same thing. I've hit my magic back. I have my duration, but I do not have a next move. Then my Sylvan start 2, on the other hand, it's magic back, does not have a move. My Sylvan 3, so Sylvan 1 is my start. Here, let me show you. So you can't really see it, but Sylvan 1 has the card here. Sylvan 2 puts the card there. And then Sylvan 3 drops the card down, and it brings it down. Sylvan 4 brings it over to the right. And then Sylvan 5 is its start key. So that way, when I hit Sylvan 3, I have the next move be Sylvan 4, and then Sylvan 4, the next move. 3 goes to 4, and then 4 should go to 5, but that's let's fix that. Sylvan 5. So that way, and then Sylvan 5 doesn't have anything. So when Sylvan 3 happens, so when Sylvan 1 happens, it gets it into position. Sylvan 2 gets it into my drawn feature. And then Sylvan 3, 4, and 5 drag it down and then drag it back to the starting position. So Sylvan 1 has it in starting position. Sylvan 2 drags it there. And then Sylvan 3 drags it down, triggers Sylvan 4, and then Sylvan 5 back to its starting position. So that way, it always comes out of the deck. And then I've done that again for Magic Back 2, where Sylvan 1 will have it in the start, Sylvan 2 will get that. But if you notice, it's a little farther over to the right. And then Sylvan 3 has it a little farther over. That shows the 3 different cards. But they're all the same actions where they'll come here, they'll go there, and then go back down. So pretty simple. Or pretty simple with a lot of extra commands. So I've shown you how to draw all 3 cards. How do I only draw 2 though? Well, the cool thing is, let me drag over my function key. So my keep 2. Essentially, what it does is the first card on the left is my keep. My keep 1. Or sorry, this is a keep 2. So my first 2 cards are going to do the same thing as my draw 3, where they are just going to jump down and go into my hand. Where this last one is, instead of going down, is just going to go back to its start position. So let's see that. So because I have all these different moves tracked here, Sylvan 3. So it's in the second position. Instead, I just have it go back to the first position. That makes it look like it's going back. So I'll show you. So for my multi action, and this can be done just by hitting a bunch of extra keys on your thing. But essentially, to keep 2, it says, all right, these first 2, they are going to go to your third position. And third position is into the hand, and that's straight down. Then for the last position, it's going to go back to the start. So these 2 are going to drop, and the third card is going to go back. And it's the same thing with keep 1. For keep 1, the first card is going to drop down, and these 2 cards are just going to go back to its starting position. So I hope everyone explains it. If you have any comments or questions, just let me know in the comments down below for this video, and I'll help you answer them. I know this can be a lot, but overall, oh, and for Stream Deck people that don't want to buy a Stream Deck, at least for iPhones, I know it's actually free to do 6 function keys. So if you want to do Sylvan, you can, or if you just want to have your draw, untap, and roll feature, that's also available. But the Sylvan used a little extra, or used a few extra buttons, so that's a little nice. So let's see, how would you want to do this if you just wanted hotkeys and you didn't have any special function keys on the Stream Deck or the free software or anything like that? Well, it's pretty simple. So let's go back up to settings. We're going to go into hotkeys. We are going to go, this is my main Moxfield. So Moxfield. And if you go all the way down, you're going to see all these Sylvans. So how am I going to do this? It's going to take a bunch of keys on your keyboard, but it's not that bad. So Sylvan start. You can name them all the same thing. So this one we can do A. So for Sylvan start, we need, I don't know why those are out of order. That's weird, but you can do A. So Sylvan start 1-1, 2-1, and 3-1. Okay. So that's going to bring everything to this first position. Now you'll need to go into a second position. So go back to settings. Go back to hotkeys. Scroll back down. So now you need to get everything into a second position. And I'm just going to use S because it's right next to it. So S for 2. S for 2. S for 2. Okay. So if you hit A, it'll get you to that position. If you S, it'll bring those 3 cards out. Seems pretty simple. And this is at least if you want to show all 3 of them at once. So that way you can be like, all right, Sylvan, keep 2, and you just call it out and stuff like that. But now how do you do more stuff? So settings, hotkeys, go back down. Now, your keep all, you'll unfortunately have to remember this because you'll just have to remember the shortcuts. But let's go keep all. So that means all 3 of your cards are going to go back down. So 1, 3, it'll be sad. Hit OK. So that's keep 3. So hit the actually. So if you hit S, which is bring them all out, then you hit D, which will bring them back down. That's keep 3. That'll show you at least keeping 3 because you can just cycle through your S and D. So now how do you keep 2? All right. To keep 2, that means one of these cards is going to go down to your hand and the other 2 are going to go back to the start position. So your keep 2 is going to be your F key. So F key is going to need the first card to go down and the second cards to go back to the start position. So you can go F for 1. And that might have been a little complicated, so I'll go back. So we've decided that F is going to be your keep 2 keys. Or sorry, keep 2 cards. So to do that, you need to make sure that your third position, which is your drop position, it means your cards go down, that is also going to be triggered by F. So your first card and your second card, so I need to that one. So for your third one, that means on your F key, 2 cards are going to go down, and your third card is going to go back to the deck. So that's going to be your 1 position. So we go everything out, and we want 2 cards thing. We press F. All right, so A will reset them back. F will bring them all out. If you want to keep all 3, bring them down. If you want to instead bring just 2 of them, you hit the F key. So, and then we can do the same thing for just keeping one card. So, go back to settings. Hotkeys. And this is going to be just keeping one card. So for just keeping one card, you're going to want this first card back down, and we're going to use just G. But you can use anything, to be honest, to trigger all these. So we're going to add another one, and this one's going to be G. That means the first card will go down, and the other two are going to go back to the deck. So that means this Sylvan 1, excuse me, is going to go to G. And this Sylvan 3 is also going to go to G. Apply. So bring these 3 cards out. You want to keep just one of them. Hit the lid. So if you want to just keep one, hit your G. If you want to keep 2, hit F. And if you want to keep all 3, hit D. Although I did just realize D doesn't work because we have it set for your draw card, but that is fine. We'll just have to, you just have to make sure that it's all the correct ones. And that's basically it. You have your Q and W to draw your card. That's over here though. You have your Q and W. That'll let you draw your thing. And if you want to Sylvan, but you can do all those fancy things. If you want to do everything on the stream deck, I can show you that because it's pretty simple and pretty much the same thing though. Let me open up that software again. I think that just closed randomly. So instead of using function keys, you can instead use multi-actions. So let's see this draw function. So you will need one additional plugin, and that's OBS Tools Bar Raider. And Bar Raider is another thing that's really easy. I'll have it linked down below. You will need to activate it, which is also pretty simple. So whenever you click, if you scroll all the way down, you'll see OBS Tools Bar Raider. After you've added it, you can add a tool in, and you'll need to activate it. To activate it, you go into Tools, you go into WebSockets, and then your server password is what you need. So once you have that configured, though, you can use these. And basically, most of these things are just a filter toggle. So instead of having a hotkey, you can then just have a filter toggle. So add a filter toggle. This is for my draw. So under my source, which is Moxfield, or it'd be test, depending whatever you named it. Name source. You name the card draw, because that's what I have this named after. And this will perform the action. Because I have all my card draws linked to automatically move, it doesn't matter that I don't have to have a million of them to trigger them. Or if you don't want to have the move feature, you could just have a bunch of these filter toggles right in a row and it'll do it in the order. But essentially, I don't know why that it's not liking that. Okay, it's not liking it because I have got the system hotkey that I just did. But that'll be fixed. So here, let me show you untap then. This is the same thing. So it's the same filter toggle, Moxfield, draw a card, and then I use a hotkey N because when you're on Moxfield, N will trigger your next turn, and that'll trigger the card draw move. Then for roll, you have source visibility instead of toggle visibility. So it's the same thing where under this, you just find the source visibility, which is right there. Click on it, make the scene, add your D6 roll, and that way, whenever you click the button, it will roll your dice. Then, as I said for the Sylvan, I just have a bunch of filter toggles on and system hotkeys rather than just using the hotkeys itself in Moxfield. The reason that I do this is because if I am searching, so if I go back to here, and let's say I need to view my library and find a card, I want this dispel. If I click the D on dispel, if you use a hotkey, it'll think it's drawing a card, even though Moxfield hasn't actually drawn it. So it is one little inconsistencies is only when you're searching or if you're like typing into chat or something like that. But it'll be fixed if you use a stream deck, so it's not that bad. But let's get back over here. So I hope everyone enjoyed this and found it informative. Hopefully I'll see a lot of really cool setups, and if there's anything that you think that I should add or any features or stuff like that, let me know, because I really do like having a Moxfield playtest setup. So I will catch everyone later, and remember, never give up, even if you're dead on board.